Hey guys, what's up? My name is Sumit and I am back with another amazing tutorial on creating this amazing animated glass globe model for glass globe models specially made for Christmas here. As you know it very well that Christmas is only a couple of days left. So I have decided to create some tutorials on creating some animations for this Christmas, and of course I'll be doing the entire stuff in Blender. So let's get started if you want to create some amazing animations like this. Okay, so that we have opened our Blender project. Let's get started with hitting just outside this box here. The first and foremost thing that I'll be doing here is to turn on my screencast key by hitting N. I will be just clicking here to turn on the screencast key. As you can see that whatever I will be doing here will be shown here, so you can carry on with it. And now I don't want any of these default objects to be present here, so I'll be deleting each and everything of them by hitting A and deleting them because I don't need them. Now let me go to my orthographic view by hitting numpad 5 and then go to front orthographic view by hitting numpad 1, and I'll be start modeling my glass globe model, whatever it is. So I'll just start by creating a circle here, going to add mesh and then go to circle, and instead of giving it 32 vertices I will be rather taking it at 8 vertices because I want my model to be loop only right now. And then in the fill type I will be selecting triangle fan. Now I'll be going to edit mode by hitting tab and then extrude it along the z-axis a little bit, and then left click to extrude that object at that point. Then again I'll extrude, hit E to extrude, and this time I won't move my mouse a little bit. Instead of that I'll be hitting S to scale it down to about 80% of the radius of the base of this mesh. So I'll be hitting 0.8 and then hit enter to give it an 80% of the radius, and then again extrude along the z-axis, and then again hit left click and then extrude scale about 80% of this mesh here, then hit enter, and then again I'll hit E to extrude along the z-axis another for the third time a little bit, and then hit left click. So having this done, the base of my model has been created here. Now I'll be adding some loop cuts so that whenever I'm using as surf modifier it won't get totally smoothed out. So hitting Ctrl R will take out some loop cuts here and then align it along the base as well as along the top of the each and every vertices the workflow here. Oh sorry, I messed it up. Like this and like this as well. Now having this done, I'll be adding a subsurf modifier for my model for the base here. Now you can see that it has got a nice structure here, and selecting the smooth shading. Having this done, I will rename it as the base. So let me rename this as a base, and now I will be selecting these top vertices here, this top edge loop here, and then this vertices here, and duplicate it and then hitting P to make it a separate selection. So I have got two different mesh here, one is a circle and the other is a base. I will rename this circle as terrain because I will use it as the terrain inside the globe, and give it a scale of about 80% of this top edge flow here. But before going there, let me at first set my origin point to the center of this circle. As you can see that this origin point has been aligned over here. So what I will be doing, I will go to edit mode, select this vertex here, and then by hitting Shift S, I'll be snapping my 3D cursor to about to the selected area. So this will snap my 3D cursor over here, and then again go to object mode. If I'm hitting Shift, Control, Alt and then C there, and I'm selecting my origin to about 3D cursor, automatically my circle has got its origination in the 3D cursor. So I'll scale it down about 80% by hitting S and then 0.8, then hit enter. And this time for this mesh here, I will be applying these subsurf modifiers, so to give it a good circly like shape here. Now I will extrude it again by going to tab mode, select every vertices here, then extrude it along the z-axis once again to give it a little bit of an elevation here, and then go out of my edit mode. As you can see that it has got a nice shape here, but it needs to be worked a little. So again I will be going to the edit mode, select each and every vertices here, and then I will give it a little bit of a subdivision. Maybe 5 cuts would be enough for it, and then I'll give it a very little fractal value. Maybe 0.05 is good for it. Sorry if I'm going too fast, moving too fast with this, but you know it's a very long tutorial and there are a lot of works to do. So I am trying to limit the duration of my tutorial to be about within an hour. So basic modeling I will be doing rather fast, and I'll be putting more emphasis on more complex scene like the animations here. Okay, so let's get back to work. Let's add a subsurf modifier for this mesh again, and selecting some of the random vertices here, I will just give it a proportional editing, random proportional editing here. So hitting O will turn on my proportional editing, and but instead of this smooth shading here, I'll be just taking this random instead and drag it along the z-axis, so as it has got a random jagged like structure here. Yeah, something like that appeals to me. And here I'll be again selecting this smooth shading because this will act as a snow, and as you know that a model like this don't have realistic features kept inside in it, but rather it has got to be more toys like structure. Let me align this thing, and now I'll be modeling some Christmas tree here. So in order to create that pine tree, I'll just add a cylinder with 8 vertices, and then the cap fill type will be to about triangle fan again, and scale it down so as to make it a more appropriate shape here. And I'll be going to edit mode, selecting if I am selecting this one, then it will be clipping to both side rather than the side which we are facing here. So selecting these clipping features here with the box selection, let me drag it along the z-axis a little bit. Oh, I'm sorry, my proportional editing is turned on. Let me turn it off. Dragging it along the z-axis, I will be just scale it down like this so that it gives a conical shape to my structure here, and I'll be adding some loop cuts here. Maybe 2 is enough for it, and then again I'll be adding some loop cuts here and scale it up so as to give a more fall down like structure here. Again I'll be adding another loop cut, scale it up a little bit, and then move it along the z-axis downwards. Same thing with this, scale it and then move it along the z-axis downwards. Now you can see that my Christmas tree has been created almost. Now I'll be selecting these vertices as well as these vertices, then with extrusion and scaling it to about like this, I will just drag it, extrude and drag it along the z-axis downward, just about here. Okay, so now you can see that my Christmas tree has been created. I may scale it down a little bit so as to give it a little bit of a variation. Move it here, position it anywhere you want. Right now I am not going to duplicate that because I want my pine tree to be applied material at first, and then I'll be duplicating it all along the path in order to give it some random shape. Okay, having this done, let us go with the dome or the globe here. So I'll be adding another mesh which will be a UV sphere here, and this UV sphere I want to align like this area. So going to the edit mode, selecting these bottom vertices, I'll just delete them and leave it wherever it is, and selecting some subsurf modifier and giving it a smooth shading. My process is almost done. Oh, another thing that I have to do is to give it a little bit of a solidification, and the solidify modifier will be on the top of the subsurf modifier here. Let me isolate this globe here so that we can see the inside of this globe here. So hitting Shift H will isolate these things and hide all other meshes that I've created here. So I'll be giving it a little bit of thickness, maybe around 0.35 will be good for creating a glass effect here. And for this time being, I'll be selecting some of the top vertices here like this and duplicate them by hitting Shift D and make it a parent for future use, and maybe scale it down a little bit, yeah, something like that. And let us rename it as emitter, and this to be the globe. Having this done, let us at first save our project. So I'll be save this as Christmas globe. Blend in my desktop here. Having this done, we have let us unhide each and everything here. So hitting Alt H will bring back all my hidden mesh here. So we have done with the modeling part. Now right now I don't need this globe, so I'll hide this as well as this emitter, and this time I will be going to a separate layer and model some emitter. As you've seen that were sparks in my scene as well as some snow. So I'll be creating 3 different icosphere and defining them with 3 different tasks. So the first time I'll be adding an icosphere, model it down a little bit, and then give it a material. At first let me rename it as the sparks 1, yeah, something like that. And let us duplicate it and go over here, bring it here, and let me give it a name as snow, and maybe another for the third time, rename it as sparks 2. Now we'll be setting up the material for these sparks right now. So let me divide my screen to about 2 different layers, and this time for this layer I'll be selecting node editor. For the sparks one, I'll be using an emission BSDF, an emissions shader here, a pretty much very simple shader for this material, and give it something like bluish color, blue color, and giving the strength to about 5. You can see from here it's glowing quite good. And for the sparks 2, I'll be just selecting the same material here, but this time I'll be using a rather purple like color. Oh sorry, I messed up. Before changing this color, let me hit this number 2, so to give it an individual color here, and this time I'll be just using a purple color. So you can see both of these 2 sparks have been ascribed with 2 different colors. And for my snow, I'll be again selecting this material, selecting 2 again to give it an individual and an individual shader here. I'll be just turning all my values up to give it a white tone, and then turn the strength up to 0.5 to give it a 50% of the emission, a grayish like structure here. Having this done, let us get back to level to the first layer here, and we have to do something more here. What we'll have to do here, at the first time, for creating the snow here, I will be applying the same material, just a very best material here. Leave it wherever it is, but here I'll be just giving a little bit of a noise texture, and the factor will be given with the displacement. As you can see, there is a little bit of noise going around here, and for the scale I'll be using something about 100 to give it more denser displacement map going all through the mesh. And for these pine trees, I'll be using 2 different shaders. So let me go to the edit mode, select this branch by just hitting Control. As you can see, the base is already been selected, so if I'm selecting Control plus, the entire base will be selected here, and assign a new different material here, and then by selecting these leaves, I'll be assigning another material here. So let me click on new button at first, a very best material again, a dark brown like color to give the trunk a little bit of a brownish structure, and then hit Control I to inverse the selection so that my entire leaves are selected, and then clicking on the plus button will pop up another new material here. This time I'll be selecting a green color for the material, dark green like structure for the material, and hitting on the sign will ascribe same material over it. Now, having all these things done, let me duplicate my tree here and position them all over my terrain here by scaling it maybe a little bit down. You can do it on a random position. I like 3 of them to be enough for this scene, or you can even model something else if you want. Now for this base material, I'll be selecting a wood texture, so hitting on the new button will pop up another material, and this time I'll be using a wood texture for the diffuse material. and there will be a little bit of a bump map going on around it. So let me at first feed it with a mixed shader here, and then I'll be using a glossy material to it, and the factor will be a very little, 0.12 will be enough, and give and there will be an image texture for the diffused material here. There I have been creating some of the various texture for creating random structures like this. So I'll be selecting this one because it is suitable for the scene, and then here I'll be adding a mapping node to convert a vector. There will be a mapping node, the vector. This time I'll be plugging the output of the vector to the vector of this image, and defining it would be, in order to define that, I'll be using another input here, which will be a texture coordinate, and I'll be selecting generated as my selection here. So if I'm hitting Shift Z to give it a viewport render, you can see that the image texture is already applied, but it is acting weird here. So all I have to do is scale 90 degree, rotate 90 degree along the Z axis, no, maybe 180. Oh, like I don't know, I think I messed up with something. Okay, it would be along the y-axis, not along the z-axis. I'm sorry for that. Sometimes I even forget what sort of thing that I did it before. Okay, having this mapping done, I will be just duplicating this image texture here by hitting Shift D, and this time I will be giving it a non-color data because I want some bump map going along with it, and plugging the vector with the vector of this image texture again. This time I'll be using a vector bump node here, just to give it a little bit of a bumpness or displacement going along the edges of the image texture here. So taking the color output of this blackened or this grayscale image to the height of the bump map, and connecting the normal to both the normal of the glossy as well as the diffused material here, and cranking the strength up to 0.25 will give me much satisfactory result. Now if I want to check this out, I'll be just hitting Shift A, just give it a default sun lamp, and let's rotate it so that you can see that it has got nice edge going around it. Maybe cranking, maybe I have to decrease the strength of this bump map a little bit. 0.15 is very good for this scene. Okay, having this done, our materials have been created here. Now we just want I just have to give a base to this, add a plane, maybe scale 5 times for this scene. If I'm hitting Shift Z, you can see that it has already taken shape, and it's not looking too bad, is it? Maybe tweaking with the light shadings. Okay, so I need to decrease the noise texture, the bump or the displacement of this noise texture that I have used here. Let's give it a 20. Okay, it's also too high. I usually forget what settings I had done for this scene. maybe a little bit of a bluish color will give it a good shape here. Yeah, and okay, let us delete these things for now. And yeah, it's looking rather nice than it was before. Okay, having these things done, now let us bring back our globe. Okay, before doing that, let me at first move on with the animation, because I have done with the modeling. Now in order to do that, let me at first go to the top edge here. This top edge has already, this top's vertex has already been selected. Let me snap my cursor to the selection so that whatever I'm adding will be automatically being snapped from this area. Here I will be adding a curve which will be a curve spirals. It will be Archimedean curves, like that. And this time I want an animation of the sparks that will be going within a spiral, and the turn I want to be about 5, you can do 4, and the steps to be about 250, because I want more smooth, like running along the edges, to be going all around. Of course you can't see anything. This is because of the fact that it hasn't got its height yet. So the radius and the first, you cannot scale it down from here, because once you scale it down, once you start hitting S, all these options that has been loaded here will just vanish. So if you want to decrease the radius, you have to do it from here. So I'll be giving it a very little radius, maybe even more, 22, yeah, something like that. And for the height I'll be increasing, I will be give a height like this. Now you can see that a very spirally, a spring-like structure has popped up from the circle that we had created there. And the radius growth, I want to give it a -0.2 value, sorry, negative 0.2 value, so that, oh, it's a little bit of too much, maybe 0.02. yeah, I'm always forgetting. -0.02 value for this, maybe even more. Maybe 0.03, 0.04. Point is, again I forgot my -0.045. yeah, okay, now that I've satisfied with this structure, God, it takes too much to do it. And having this done, having been satisfied with this structure, let me save this project at first. And now I'll be duplicating this for future use and move it to another layer. Select this one and let us rotate along the z-axis a little bit. And this is the path that I want my sparkles to go along, and maybe this one has, no, it's rather looking nice. Okay, so let us go to edit mode and select the last of the vertices here and snap my 3D cursor to the selection. And now let me add a UV sphere there, scale it down all the way down, maybe even more, yeah, like this, and selecting this UV sphere and then selecting this curve by hitting shift, by holding shift and left clicking on this curve. If I am hitting Ctrl P and setting this parent to object rather than this, I will just select follow path. So automatically my sphere will follow this path. As you can see, if I'm selecting this one and go to this curve structure, it has got its evaluation times and the number of frames, how many frames this will take for this UV sphere to go up there. So if I'm playing this, if I'm hitting this play button, you can see that my sphere is moving. Now it has moved stopping after frame 100 because the number of frames that has been ascribed here is 100. And be sure to see whether this button is checked, whether this box is checked, because otherwise your sphere would move an inch. So let me give it a frame about 150. So for the 150 frame, at frame 150 my UV sphere will be at the top of this spiral here, and you can see that the movement has become much more slower and smoother than it was before. Having this done, what I have to do is I will just give it a particle settings here. And another thing that I want to do is that this curve that I have given, I want it to be shaped like a ribbon, and it will also be animated. Okay, so that will be a later story. So let us select this UV sphere and go to this particle settings, click on new. It will create a new particle system for my UV sphere here. Now this type, I will be selecting the number of frames to be about 150, the end frames to about 150, and the number of emission I want to be about 5000, because this will create some particle effects. Now if I'm hitting play again, you can see that it has already started creating some of the particle settings here, but these are acting much weirder than it was in the video. This is because of the fact that we haven't applied all the settings yet. So what we'll have to do, all these particles are actually now emitting from the faces of this UV sphere, and I want this emission to be about faces, but rather than jittered, I will select random. For this will give a much more random emission, particle emission here. And down here I'll be setting an object. My duplicate object will be sparks 1. Now you can see that these sparks are huge. This is because of the fact that my sparks here, the icosphere that I have created here, is also very huge. So let me scale it down a little bit. Maybe let us scale all these three down a little bit, maybe something like this. Now if I'm going again here, you can see that this has got much smaller emitter than it was before. Now the emission thing, the size of this emission I want to be about 0.02, maybe even low, 0.01. And if I'm hitting viewport render, you can see that this emitter has got its emission particles. This emitter is actually duplicating my emitter 1 or my sparks 1 to be its particles, and this sparks has already been created. But we haven't done with our settings yet, so now I'll be giving it a very little lifetime, because I don't want these particles to be emit right on this way. So let us decrease the lifetime of this to be about 20. This will create a much shorter lifespan for this emitter. And let us increase the random of this lifetime way up to value 1. So every other every other particles will have random lifespan for its particles, that for its will have a random lifespan. God knows what I'm saying. Okay, so having this done, another thing that we have to do is to decrease the velocity of our emitter geometry, because I don't want these particles to be just emitting all the way here and there. So I'll be giving it a very little emitter generation here. I'll be giving, instead of 1, I'll be giving 0.15 to keep it stagnant, and here on this field width I will decrease the gravity all the way down to 0. Now if I'm again playing these animation loops, now you can see that this has created much better result than it was before. But there are again some other tweakings that is to be done, because you can see that again these are scattering all the way, and I don't want all these scatterings. So what I'll be doing, again go to this velocity and decrease this velocity even way down. So I'll be taking 0.08 for this velocity, and let us check again. Yeah, now that it has created much more of a satisfactory result than it was before. So we are done with the first particle. So if I'm hitting again viewport render, now you can see that it has created much better result than it was before. But there is another problem. Instead of only this sparkles, actually we can see the ball here, the UV sphere here, the emitter here. This is because of the fact that here down here I have this emitter checked. Now if I am unchecking this emitter, you can see that these particles will be displayed but not the emitter. So if I am again playing the animation, you can see that my UV sphere is no more displaying or no more rendered here. Having this done, our 50% of the work has been done. Congratulations. Okay, enough with the blabbery here. Let's get back to work again. So down here we have another loop here, which I'll be bringing it back to level 1 or layer 1, and with this spiral, what I'll be doing, I'll be just I have to do some sort of a tweakings with it as well. So rotate it along the z-axis as it was before, like this. Yeah, maybe matching as nearly as we can, maybe even more. Yeah, something like that. Now this time I won't be actually applying any other materials applied to it. Instead I'll be animating this curve itself. So selecting that curve, if I'm going to this curve icon here, I'll be just giving it a bevel depth of about 0.01. This will give it a bevel structure. Maybe it is too high. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, let me at first check this one. Yeah, it is looking quite good. Now having this bevel done, what I'll be doing, I'll just go to frame 1 and have this start all the way up, down, up, and the end value to be about 0, and if I am hitting I, automatically a keyframe will be added to it. And I have remembered that this UV sphere took the entire animation of going up to about 150 frames, so instead of doing 150 frames, what I'll be doing, I'll be giving it a let's start of getting to about 160 frames. So going to 160 frames, if I am pressing this turning this end value to all the way up to 1 here, I think I did something wrong, didn't I? Yeah, I did something wrong. Okay, what wrong did I give? The end value would be 1 and then the start value would be 0. Now the end value would be 0 again. So going to the frame 1, if I am hitting I to the end value and then go to 160 frame, if I am giving the end value to be all the way up to 1 and again hitting I, then this render has been finished. There is another animation done. So let us see. God, I always get forgotten all this stuff here. I usually forget stuff what I'm doing first. Sorry about all these things. Now there is a little bit of a problem that I found out, that although this curve is taking its shape much later than the starting of this UV sphere, it's actually going to the endpoint earlier than that of my UV sphere, which I do not want. I want the shape of this spiral to follow this UV sphere. So what I'll be doing, again divide this and go to the graph editor, selecting this one. If I'm hitting V and give it a vector shape, now let me try this one again. I can see that it is actually going much way up because of the stagnant movement. So I'll have to undo this one. Now yeah, something like that. Let me again play this one. Yeah, now I can see that from about frame number 42 it's actually getting a good pace, but I want this kind of a pace. It is actually taking much, it's actually following this UV sphere at a good pace, but then it acts frantically and goes up, all the way up, just like it has got some very important work to do. So what I'll be doing here, I'll be taking this area and grab it down a little bit, and again this area to grab it down a little bit. If I'm hitting, let me test this one. My god, it's bugging me up. Come on. Okay, it was frame 160 rather than a frame this. If I'm doing like this, you have to do a little bit of a tweaking with this structure, otherwise. Let me go to the 160 frame and let me see how much of it is achieving actually. Okay, so I have to crank it down a little bit. Again, let me grab all the way up there. Then if I'm playing this is actually all the tweakings that you have to do in order to get that satisfactory result. So that there won't be any problem later on. Yeah, okay, so all I have to do is take this area and just grab it and just move it, just to tweak accordingly. And now if I'm hitting V and giving it a vector, then you can see, then you can see that it's actually moving like it had to move. I'm again fucking these things up. Sorry about using all these things. Let me check it again. Yeah. Okay, so having this done, because it took a lot of tweaking, and now what I'll be doing, I'll just give it a material here. So going to the material, selecting an emissions shader and checking it, like giving it a shader like this, a blue ribbon. You can give a red ribbon or even a purple ribbon if you want. I am sticking with this red ribbon, with this blue ribbon, sorry, again, because it suits me. Blue is my favorite color. That's the personal touch. Okay, having these things done, let me again say this one. So my animation is pretty much finished. This is actually what we will be doing with these frames, and I will be adding another particle settings here, which will be starting right from frame 172 and it will end to 200 or something like that. So hitting on the plus button will pop up another particle settings, and this time I want my particle settings to be about 500. Emitter emission will be 500 and the lifetime will be about 10, and the start frame will be 172 and the end frame will be about 200, and we'll give it a random value of all the way to maximum. And this time if I'm hitting play again, you can see that all these are again acting weird because of the fact that the emitter geometry is about all the way up to 1. I'll be giving it 0.1 of the normal of the emitter or the velocity, and now you can see that it's actually moving better, but it's actually going down. So again I'll be taking the gravity all the way up down to 0, but instead of 0 I'll be giving it a very little amount of a gravity. So now if I'm playing this up, so what it is creating, it will create some explosion like structure. So again there'll be a little bit of a tweaking here. Maybe the emitter geometry to about 0.5 will be good enough for this renderings. You can see, let me test this one, and now you can see that the emitter is too much here for the settings. So let us give it an 80 emission material here, and the lifetime to be about 5. Yeah, something like that. Well, now if I'm giving it a much more and giving it a random value, and the Brownian value to be about 0.02 and the emitter geometry to about 0.25, it will give better result. Okay, the lifetime, I think the end time needs to be tweaked to be about 180 frames. Or 185. This is all about your personal touch, whatever, how you want your emitter to be. Maybe 10. Yeah, it seems to be good to me right now. And there will be again another thing that I wanted to do is uncheck this event distribution. This will create a random value here, the emission, and of course if I have to give it a duplicate object here. This time I'll be using Sparks 2. So if I'm going to the viewport render, as you can see, and if I'm moving along in my timeline here, you can see that it's actually creating some sort of a explosion, but the size I want to be about 0.01, and for this also I don't want my emitter to be shown here. So this has created a much better look here. Let me save this project again. Having these things done, we are done with our animation. All we have to do is give our is to unhide these things, those globe, and give it a final touch. So let me hit Alt H to bring back my globe, and let me give the globe a material at first. Now globe is actually, this globe will be a glass shader, but I won't be using 100% glass material here. Instead I'll be hitting with I'll be just adding a mix shader, and the first one will be of course a glass BSDF, and the second one will be a transparent BSDF. If I am going to viewport mode, viewport rendering, you can see through the glass, but it's not looking too good, and there's a huge reflection going on there. So what I'll be doing, I'll be putting the factor all the way up to I will be just using a Fresnel value here. You can find it to the input. Fresnel will give a little bit of a thickness to there, and the factor I want to be about Fresnel, and the index of refraction I want to be about 1, so maybe 10 or 1.5. Things are not getting too good, is it? Well, let me check this up. Okay, so again I messed up. As you can see that I have checked to another PC, that the one that where these renders had actually been done, I actually used a very little bit of a very simple thing here. Just turning the factor to about 0.98 will give this sort of a glassy structure and giving okay. So you can see that there's a go through, a very weird reflection is going on, and we cannot see our materials clearly here, our inside of this glass tube here. So what I'll be doing, I'll be just using a Fresnel value to it, and the factor I want to be about 1.450, so it will give a much better look there. And for the convenience for seeing my glass, or to give it a little bit of a, you can see that now the screen has gone too dark here. So if I'm turning this value all the way up, then you can see that the color is actually not getting too much dark, but it's rather getting quite interesting here. This is actually your personal tweaking touch. You don't have to give it a realistic look here because it's not so important, because all it's actually a glass model, and if you are giving it a very high model there, a very heavy material there, it will take you very long to render, because this is actually an animation that we are creating here. So let me tweak some of the parts here. What I'm doing, what have I done? Let me bring it back. Okay, so having these things done, now we can see that the top of this glass is actually showing up, the one that we had duplicated. So again, let me hide this one because we are done with the material of the glass, and this time I will be taking this as an snow emitter, this top vertices of the glass that we had created to be the top emitter, snow emitter for inside this globe. So I'll go to the particle settings again. I've already been there, click on new, and here down, all the way down, I'll be taking this object to be the snow. As you can see, if I am playing my render, the snows are very huge, so I'll be also be giving a little bit of the size here, and I want the snow to be about 2000, maybe 1000 is enough for here, and the lifetime is actually totally depending on how long is your emitter going down. So in order to see this, I have to play the animation, and I can see that it is going all the way down to something around this. So I'll be giving it a very little lifetime, maybe 20 is enough, and this is actually, you have to see, and 20 is also getting too much. So if I'm giving it a 10 value of the lifetime, now you can see it's actually looking good. Now let us increase the number to about 5000 and play the entire thing. So let us increase the lifetime to be about 12 so that the entire thing falls down, and the lifetime, the end frame to be about 250 so that it takes the entire frame to be rendered there. And let us give it a random value so that there will be random lifetime value to each and every of this snow material, but you can see that it has got a lot of velocity in it, so I'll be decreasing the velocity to about 0.1 to give it a smoothness, maybe even more, maybe even less, 0.05. Still it is getting too much, so 0.01, and let us drag the gravity to about, okay, over here like this. And now that we have seen that we have to increase the lifetime again to about 50, to be about 20. This is actually the tweaking that you have to do in order to suit your scene. Maybe 22 will be good for this scene. Okay, so we are done with it. Am I done? Let me click this off a little bit and give it a random values. random emission. Let me turn on the random values to the size as well, so that snow particles will act as different. Some will be small, some will be little, some of them will be big. Yeah, and I can see that there is now the problem. I actually cannot see the snows there yet, so I'll be giving it an emission power of 1, and now let us see. Yeah, now it is good. And here again I will be turning this emitter off and unhide all the things here. So if I am going to viewport render, now you can see that our globe has been created quite well. This is actually good. I've finished doing all this stuff, all this complex stuff within 1 hour, and I'm too much surprised with it, because when I was doing it for my own, it took me almost around 3 hours to complete this entire scene, and it's good. It is good. Maybe I have to tweak the size of it a little bit, and so with the lifetime, maybe 25 will be good for the lifetime, because when I'm rendering I cannot see the snow particles. Okay, so let us unhide those and let us give it a little bit of a viewport rendering. Okay, now you can see that it has done quite well. So now all I have to do is take my sun lamp and give it a bluish color, so that it symbolizes nighttime or something like that, and I don't want gray background. I will be taking rather a dark blue like background, which will be majorly darkened, because I want these emitters, these sparkles, to be glowing here. So having this done, let's give the strength value to about 0.8, and yeah, we are done with our tutorial here. So let me give it a little bit of a rendering so that you can see how it is done. And another thing that I have to do is let me hide this thing, tracking the camera. So what I'll be doing here, I'll be going to the first frame here, add a camera here, and go to the camera view by hitting Ctrl Alt and 0. Now I have my camera locked with the motion here. If you won't have it featured, if you don't have this kind of an ability here, go down here to the press in button and then click on lock camera to view. So it will enhance you to move along the camera. If you are dragging, so your camera will also be moving here. So what I'll be doing, I'll just keep this right this, and let me take the focal length about 28. It will be 28. I find it very useful here, and let us zoom it, and something around here seems to work fine. Let me see. Yeah, so Y will be then again hit N, and on the location I'll be hitting I, and the rotation to be about I, to add keyframes here, and then going to frame 40. I can see that my sphere has gone somewhere like this. Okay, let me go to sphere 20 at first, and you can see that it's actually going far away. So moving something like that, and then hitting I again to location and rotation, then somewhere along 40 again, like this. Positioning something like that, and then to about 80, just going away with it, and then along frame 140 to be about when we are getting out of our model here. So hitting I again, and then I again, and then go to around 250. This will act like this. Yeah, quite nice. Then again hit I and I. So if I'm playing through the animation again, so you can see that although my camera is moving very fast, this is because of the fact that there are a lot of things that is going on around here. So what I'll be doing, I have to go there and clicking on space bar. Let me delete keyframes here, delete keyframe. So here you can see that it is over here, and then slowly it's going and it's going away, and now it's looking rather fine here. Having these things done, let us save our project for the final time and unhide all these things. Let us give it a little bit of a report renderings, and let us go along with our scene here. Now you can see it is actually getting good, and let us give it a shader as well. My tutorial has got a wooden texture applied to it, so I'll be again adding a wood texture and select the same wood texture that I had applied to this mesh, but I'll be using instead a color ramp here, or maybe RGB curve, or mix a RGB curve to give it a different look here. So giving red value to be about a little bit of a red value, and turning the green value down a little bit. So having these things done, I'll be adding the same thing, vector mapping here with the table as well, with the floor as well as, sorry, and a texture coordinate to be about generated. So that has created a nice wooden like structure here. Having these things done, let us save it and let us give it a render at first in order to see whether my scene has got some sort of a shortcomings or not. For the sake of the testing, I'll be giving it a 50 sampled rendering, and I'll be pausing my video a little bit. So that my render has been finished, and it took almost about 2 hours to complete this entire animation. And for the sake of the video, I had to do some of the tweakings there. You see, I have reduced the resolution to about 50% of the pure HD, and I had to again decrease the samples from 50 samples to about 30 samples. because it is actually a tutorial series, so I won't bother so much about the samples here. So let us see how my animation has started. It's not looking too bad, is it? So yes, here it is. It concludes the tutorial. Hope you guys like this. If you really like my video, then please like and subscribe to my channel, and also share this to your friends and your near and dear ones, so that it would support me to create more and more videos like this. And yeah, I will be doing another Christmas tutorial within after quite a few days. So happy Christmas in advance. This concludes the tutorial. Bye.